Aisha had always been taught to be polite, to be agreeable. From a young age, she was conditioned to blend in, to not stand out, to be the epitome of grace and composure. Her parents, her teachers, even her friends all echoed the same sentiment. Don't rock the boat, Aisha. It's better to stay silent than to cause a scene, to never make a fuss, to always wear a smile, even when her heart was heavy. She learned to mask her true feelings, to bury her pain deep within, and to present a facade of calm and contentment. But a seed of truth had been planted within her, a seed that whispered of injustice, of pain buried deep. It was a small voice at first, easily drowned out by the cacophony of societal expectations. Yet it persisted, growing louder with each passing day. It was a truth she could no longer ignore. The more she tried to suppress it, the more it demanded to be heard. It gnawed at her, a constant reminder of the wrong she had endured and the justice she sought. This truth was about him, the man society respected, the man who cast a long shadow over her life. He was revered by many, seen as a pillar of the community, but Aisha knew the darkness that lurked beneath his polished exterior. This man who had hurt her in ways she could barely articulate, let alone admit aloud. The scars he left were not visible, but they were deep, etched into her very soul. She had tried to forget, to move on, but the memories haunted her, a constant shadow in her life. Aisha knew speaking out would be like shattering a vase in a silent room. The silence would be broken and the pieces would scatter, impossible to put back together. The repercussions would be far-reaching, affecting not just her, but everyone around her. The consequences, she feared, would be swift and brutal. She imagined the backlash, the disbelief, the accusations. She feared being ostracized, being labeled a troublemaker, a liar. The weight of these fears was almost too much to bear. Her voice, small and hesitant, would be pitted against his powerful pronouncements. She knew the odds were stacked against her, that his influence and power could easily overshadow her truth. But the seed of truth within her had grown, and with it, a sapling of courage. Yet the seed of truth had taken root, growing into a sapling of courage within her heart. It gave her strength, a newfound resolve to stand up for herself, to speak her truth no matter the cost. She knew she had to speak. The time for silence was over. The time for truth had come. She would no longer be a prisoner of her past, no longer be silenced by fear, for herself, for others, for every voice that had been silenced, for every truth that had been buried. Aisha would speak, and in doing so, she would plant the seeds of change. The backlash was immediate. The streets were filled with an uproar, a cacophony of voices rising in anger and disbelief. People who had once walked side by side now found themselves on opposite sides of a widening chasm. Aisha's words, shared with a trembling voice, were met with disbelief, then anger. Her voice, though quivering, carried the weight of her truth, a truth that many were not ready to hear. The emotional intensity of her revelation rippled through the crowd, igniting a firestorm of reactions. How dare she accuse him, this pillar of the community? The man, revered and respected, stood as a symbol of integrity and honor. To many, he was untouchable, a figure above reproach. The mere suggestion of his wrongdoing was an affront to their collective belief in his infallibility. Her truth was an unwelcome intrusion, a disruption to the carefully constructed narrative of his life, of their shared history. It was as if she had thrown a stone into a still pond, sending ripples that threatened to overturn the calm surface of their community. Aisha was labeled a liar, an attention seeker, a troublemaker. Friends turned their backs. The whispers followed her everywhere, a constant reminder of her newfound pariah status. The bonds of friendship that once seemed unbreakable now felt like chains, binding her to a reality of isolation. Family members questioned her sanity. They couldn't fathom why she would risk everything to speak out. The arguments were heated, filled with accusations and pleas for her to recant. But Aisha stood firm, even as the foundation of her familial relationships began to crumble. The weight of their doubt felt like stones piled upon her chest, threatening to suffocate her. Each day was a battle against the overwhelming tide of skepticism and hostility. She found herself retreating into solitude, seeking solace in the quiet corners of her mind. She was ostracized, isolated, her world shrinking to the confines of her own fear and doubt. The once vibrant tapestry of her life now seemed faded and frayed, each thread pulled taut by the strain of her ordeal. Yet, in the midst of this desolation, a spark of resilience remained. Yet, even as the storm raged around her, Aisha clung to the fragile branch of her truth. She had spoken. Her words, though met with resistance, had been released into the world, and there was no taking them back. They were a beacon in the darkness, a testament to her courage. She would not be silenced. Her voice, once trembling, now carried a newfound strength. Aisha stood tall, ready to face whatever came next. Her journey was far from over, but she had taken the first step, and that made all the difference. Society, Aisha learned, often protects its own. The powerful, the privileged, are shielded by walls of silence, built brick by those who benefit from the status quo. Whispers of doubt about Aisha's story circulated, casting a long shadow over her every move. She was no longer welcome in the circles she once frequented, her presence a constant reminder of the ugliness she had exposed. The institutions meant to protect her seemed more invested in protecting their own reputations. The legal process was a labyrinth of dead ends and delays. Her story, once shared with hope, was now met with skepticism and indifference. The system, Aisha realized, was not designed for people like her. It was designed to silence them. Despite the isolation and the doubt, Aisha refused to be silenced. She had faced countless moments of despair, where the weight of her experiences threatened to crush her spirit. But deep within, she harbored a spark of resilience that refused to be extinguished. It was this inner strength that propelled her forward, even when the path seemed insurmountable. She found solace in support groups, connecting with other survivors who understood her pain. These gatherings became a sanctuary, a place where she could unburden her heart and find empathy in the eyes of others. The stories shared in these circles were not just tales of suffering, but also of triumph and healing. Their shared experiences, woven together with threads of resilience and hope, gave her the strength to continue. Each story was a testament to the human spirit's capacity to endure and overcome. Together, they formed a tapestry of courage that inspired Aisha to reclaim her narrative. Aisha began to use her voice not just to recount her trauma, but to advocate for change. She realized that her story had the power to ignite conversations and challenge the status quo. Speaking at community events, she found a new purpose in her pain, transforming it into a catalyst for social justice. She spoke at rallies, her voice growing stronger with each word. The more she shared, the more she felt the chains of her past loosening. Her speeches resonated with many, drawing attention to issues that had long been ignored. Her courage became a beacon for others who had been silenced. She shared her story with journalists, her words reaching a wider audience. Media coverage amplified her message, bringing her cause to the forefront of public discourse. Each interview was a step towards breaking the silence that had shrouded her experiences. With each act of defiance, Aisha chipped away at the wall of silence that had protected her abuser for so long. She dismantled the barriers that had kept her and others like her in the shadows. Her actions were not just personal victories, but also symbolic gestures of resistance against a system that had failed them. She was no longer just a victim. She had transformed her pain into power, her silence into a roar that demanded to be heard. Her journey was a testament to the strength of the human spirit and the possibility of redemption. She was a survivor, a voice for the voiceless, a beacon of hope in the darkness. Her story became a guiding light for others, illuminating the path to healing and empowerment. Aisha's journey was far from over, but she had found her voice, and with it, the power to change the world. Aisha's courage had a ripple effect. As she shared her story, others found the strength to share theirs. Women, emboldened by her resilience, began to break their own silences, revealing the pervasiveness of abuse, the hidden epidemic that thrived in the shadows. The groundswell of voices, once hesitant whispers, grew into a roar that could no longer be ignored. The institutions that had once failed Aisha began to take notice. Lawmakers drafted new legislation to protect survivors and hold abusers accountable. The media, once complicit in perpetuating a culture of silence, began to shine a light on the issue, giving a platform to survivors and amplifying their calls for justice. Section 6 Justice delayed, not denied. The wheels of justice turned slowly, but for Aisha they did turn. Her abuser, stripped of his power and privilege, was finally held accountable for his actions. The verdict, while not erasing the pain of the past, brought a measure of closure and validation. It sent a powerful message. Survivors will be believed, abusers will be held responsible. Aisha's case became a landmark, a testament to the power of speaking truth to power. It inspired a generation of lawyers, activists, and policymakers to fight for a more just and equitable world, a world where survivors are not defined by their trauma but by their resilience. Section 7. Scars and Strength. The scars of Aisha's past remained, a constant reminder of the ordeal she had endured. But they were also a testament to her strength, her resilience, her refusal to be defined by the actions of another. Aisha learned to navigate the world carrying the weight of her experiences, transforming her pain into purpose. She became an advocate for trauma-informed care, working to create a world where survivors are met with compassion and understanding. She dedicated her life to empowering others, to ensuring that no one had to suffer in silence, to breaking the cycle of abuse. Section 8. Her story, our story. Aisha's story is not just her own. It is the story of countless survivors who have been silenced, shamed, and disbelieved. It is a story of courage, resilience, and the transformative power of speaking truth to power. It is a reminder that we all have a role to play in creating a world where survivors are believed, supported, and empowered. We must listen to survivors, believe their stories, and amplify their voices. We must challenge the systems and structures that perpetuate abuse and silence. We must create a culture of consent, respect, and accountability. Section 9. Breaking the Silence, Building a Better World. Aisha's journey, from silence to empowerment, is a testament to the indomitable spirit of the human heart. Her story is a call to action, a reminder that even in the face of unimaginable adversity, hope can bloom. By breaking the silence, by standing in solidarity with survivors, we can create a world where every voice is heard, every story is believed, and every person is safe. Let us honor Aisha's courage by continuing the fight for a more just and equitable world, a world where silence is no longer an option, and where every survivor is met with compassion, support, and the unwavering belief that they deserve to heal and thrive.